You know, in finance, everyone is completely obsessed with this idea of alpha.
Right, the tiny edge.
Yeah, that tiny sliver of information that lets you basically move before the market corrects itself. Because if you know a stock is going to pop 10 minutes before the rest of Wall Street, you don't just make money, you print it.
That is the dream, I mean, for anyone in trading. But usually that kind of alpha is, well, it's illegal,
Yeah, insider trading.
or at least extremely highly regulated.
Right. But what if I told you that outside of finance, out in the messy physical world of logistics and retail and even telecommunications, there's this massive amount of alpha just sitting there, completely legal, but almost entirely invisible to most people.
You're talking about the exhaust of the internet.
Exactly the
A
exact
data
result.
trail left behind by millions of these tiny little decisions that when you aggregate them, they basically draw a map of the future.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into what's called agentic analytics. And we are centering this whole conversation on a market intelligence platform called Tembi. Now, before anyone tuning in rolls their eyes and thinks, this is just another AI for e-commerce pitch, I really want to flag something up front.
We have some very fresh source material today.
We do. We're looking at a report released literally today, February 24th, 2026.
Yep.
It's from Microsoft for Startups.
The report is titled Signals Before the Surge by Shish S. And it explains why this company, a company that started out basically analyzing shopping carts, is suddenly the absolute belle of the ball at the Mobile World Congress.
Which is wild.
It's a huge pivot.
Because you usually see like 5G antennas and VR headsets at MWC, not B2B market intelligence platforms. So our mission for this deep dive is to connect those dots. We want to figure out how we get from a customer buying a pair of sneakers in Copenhagen to a massive telco giant deciding exactly where to dig up the streets in Barcelona.
It is a fascinating leap, and honestly, it really forces us to rethink what market data actually is in the first place.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the tech itself, because the term agentic analytics gets thrown around a lot right now.
It's definitely a buzzword.
Yeah, and to the uninitiated, this might just sound like fancy branding for web scraping. I mean, we've had scrapers for 20 years. I could go write a Python script right now to pull prices off Amazon in, what, 10 minutes?
Probably less, yeah.
Right, so why is this different? How does Tembi actually get its data?
That's a really fair challenge, because if we were just talking about static scraping, grabbing the HTML, parsing the text, dumping it into a spreadsheet, you'd be totally right.
It's a commodity.
Exactly, it's a commodity. But static scraping is incredibly brittle. It breaks the second a site changes its layout. And more importantly, it's entirely superficial. It only sees what the retailer has painted on the storefront window.
Okay, so static scraping is like walking by and reading the menu in the window. What is Tembi doing differently?
Tembi is sending an agent inside to actually sit at the table and order a meal. We're talking about autonomous AI agents that simulate actual human behavior. They navigate the document object model just like a real user would.
Right.
They aren't just downloading a static page. They're executing the JavaScript managing session tokens, handling dynamic inventory checks. They even navigate completely through the checkout flow.
Wait, navigate the checkout flow. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
If they are simulating purchases at scale, doesn't that set off massive alarm bells?
Oh, absolutely does.
Because if I'm a retailer and I suddenly see 500 bots adding things to carts, my fraud detection like Cloudflare or whatever perimeter security I have, that should lock them out instantly.
And that right there is the massive engineering hurdle Tembi had to clear. It's why this isn't just a simple Python script.
Okay.
These agents have to operate with a level of sophistication that perfectly mimics legitimate human latency, human behavior patterns. They aren't just hammering a server with requests.
So they're taking their time.
Right, they browse. They pause to consider. They add an item to the cart to verify if the stock is actually reservable on the back end. And then they proceed into the payment screen.
To see what loads dynamically.
Exactly. They look at what delivery methods pop up, what payment options like Apple Pay or Klarna are available.
And they stop before the actual credit card charge, obviously.
Right. They validate all that complex transaction logic without making the financial commit.
That is wild. It's like having a million mystery shoppers working for you 24/7.
That's exactly what it is. And that almost transaction gives you data a traditional scraper literally never sees.
Because a scraper just sees a product page.
Right. An agent actually knows if the product is sitting in a warehouse. It knows what the exact shipping cost is to a very specific zip code. It knows if a merchant had to suddenly turn off next-day delivery because their logistics network is overwhelmed.
And what's the scale here?
The technical docs say they are monitoring over 800,000 online retailers.
800,000.
And these agents are visiting millions of web shops every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. So they are pressure testing the e-commerce infrastructure of the internet constantly.
Roughly, yes. And that scale and that specific checkout action really matters because of the noise.
What do you mean noise?
Well, the internet is essentially a graveyard of abandoned projects. One of the biggest issues with traditional market data is that it is absolutely full of zombies.
Dead websites.
Completely dead. I mean, think about how many Shopify stores were spun up by people during the pandemic and haven't sold a single t-shirt since 2023.
Oh, a ton.
But if you just scrape the web looking for URLs, you count all of those as active businesses. So your denominator is completely wrong, which means your market share analysis is garbage.
Oh, I see. Because Tembi's agents actually attempt that checkout interaction, they can verify if the business is operationally alive.
Yes, they filter out the noise
Yeah.
and only give you the active signal.
That makes a lot of sense. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's talk about real-world examples. Say I'm a logistics director. I run a fleet of trucks or a large courier network. What do I actually do with this? Because I know who the big retailers are. I don't need an AI agent to tell me Amazon is shipping a lot of cardboard boxes.
You know the giants, sure. Everybody knows the giants.
Right.
But the margin isn't in the giants. Everyone is fighting tooth and nail for those enterprise contracts. The real margin, the growth, is in the mid-market. And the mid-market is incredibly volatile.
Okay.
Let's look at the last mile delivery insights from the Tembi reports. They did this massive deep dive into 13 European countries, analyzing over 140,000 web shops, just looking at delivery methods.
This is where that Danish churn statistic came from, right? Because that one actually shocked me when I read it.
It should shock anyone in B2B sales between August 2024 and February 2025.
So it's a 6-month window.
Right, just 6 months. Tembi identified over 3,300 Danish web shops that completely ceased activity.
Wow.
That is 11% of the entire Danish market gone in half a year.
11%. That's not a market correction. That is a massacre.
It's incredibly high turnover, mostly small to medium players. Now flip that back to your logistics director persona.
Okay.
If your sales team is working off a static lead list they bought in 2024,
1 in 10 of those calls is a deadline.
exactly, it's totally wasted OpEx. But the flip side of that churn is even more interesting because new players pop up just as fast. The market is entirely fluid due to sustainability pressures and consumer preferences shifting.
So the value proposition here isn't just knowing who is selling, it's knowing who is changing. Timing is everything.
Timing is absolutely everything. Look at the customer story in the material about Anna M.
The head of partnerships in Italy.
Right. Her main problem was cold outreach. I mean, cold calling is generally miserable because you are almost always interrupting someone who is perfectly happy with their current provider.
Yeah, the whole if it don't broke, don't fix it mentality.
Exactly. But Anna's team uses Tembi to look for what they call checkout signals.
Okay, what's a checkout signal?
It means the agents see the exact moment a retailer adds a new carrier or drops an old one. Or maybe they change their free shipping threshold from 50 euros to 100 euros.
So there's movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
That checkout movement is a glaring behavioral signal of a strategic shift, or a signal that they are dissatisfied with their current logistics setup.
I get it. So Anna's team isn't just cold calling on a random Tuesday guessing.
No.
They're calling to say, hey, we see you're actively restructuring your delivery providers right now. Let's talk.
It completely flips cold outreach into a highly timed warm consultation. You're acting on behavior, not a calendar.
Yeah.
And the results are wild. The sources actually quote Christian J. over at Clerk.io on this exact efficiency.
Right, the qualification stat. 98%.
Yes, 98% of the leads identified via Tembi were qualified.
Which is insane. I mean, in B2B sales, you're usually popping champagne if 20% of your leads are qualified.
It's basically asymmetric information. You know more about their checkout configuration and their pain points than their competitors do. It turns total guesswork into actual evidence.
You know, the report also talks about a defend your position aspect, too. Not just finding new clients, but protecting the ones you have.
That comes from the delivery pricing trends report they did covering Q1 2024 through Q3 2025.
This was focused on the Nordics, right?
Sweden,
Yeah.
Denmark, Finland, Norway.
Right. And they tracked really clear seasonal patterns in how consumer delivery prices are adjusted.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, if you're a logistics provider, you can see if a competitor is secretly undercutting your shipping fees in Sweden during the Q4 holiday rush,
Oh, wow.
or if they're surging prices in Q1 to recover margins. Because the agents are sitting in the cart looking at the final price, they basically reverse engineer the pricing strategy of every single courier in the market.
It's like a radar system for pricing wars.
Yeah.
You can literally see the missiles coming before they hit your market share.
Okay, so I completely buy the retail and logistics use case. It is clearly a better mousetrap for lead gen and competitive intel. But I want to pivot here because this brings us to the second source.
The Microsoft report.
Yeah, and honestly, this is the twist that justifies doing a whole deep dive today.
The telco connection.
The telco connection, because we are looking at this fresh report from Microsoft for startup signals before the surge, and it is positioning this exact same technology, these AI shopping bots, as a critical strategic asset for massive telecommunications infrastructure.
I know it seems like a massive leap. From tracking shipping labels in Italy to deciding where to lay fiber optics.
It feels like two completely different universes. Why on earth does a network engineer at a major telco care what I am putting in my shopping cart on a Tuesday night?
To understand that, you have to understand the absolute nightmare that is telco capital expenditure, or CapEx.
Okay, set the stage for us.
We're talking about an industry that spends hundreds of billions of dollars globally every year digging trenches, laying dark fiber, putting up 5G towers.
Very expensive physical labor.
Incredibly expensive. And if you dig in the wrong zip code, if you build capacity where there isn't demand, that is just buried money.
A stranded asset.
Exactly. Now, the traditional way telcos plan these infrastructure rollouts is by looking at their own internal lagging indicators, things like bandwidth congestion or churn rates.
So they wait until the network is already slowing down.
Right. They wait for customer complaints to spike, and then some regional manager says, okay, we need more capacity in this neighborhood.
Which is completely reactive. It's like a highway construction crew fixing potholes only after a dozen cars have wrecked.
That's a great analogy. They do try to predict demand, of course, but they use really blunt demographic data. Population growth, median income, things like that.
Which doesn't really tell you what people are doing digitally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the core thesis of the SHISH report from Microsoft. Retail behavior is actually the very front edge of digital demand.
Front edge.
It is the earliest possible signal. If retail data is the traffic report, the network is the highway.
I want to challenge you on that, though. Make it concrete for the listener. How does buying a gadget online actually help a telco build a better network?
Okay, let's dive into the specifics from the report. Let's look at a concept they call device velocity.
Device velocity, okay.
Suppose Tembi's agents detect a sudden massive surge in purchases of smart home devices in a very specific cluster of zip codes.
We're talking like connected cameras, smart locks, video doorbells.
All of that.
So people are just upgrading their home security.
That's the retail view. But think about the network load view. A smart lock doesn't use much data, but a 4K cloud-connected video security camera.
Oh, that is a constant, heavy upstream bandwidth hog.
Right. It is constantly pushing high-def video to the cloud. If you see 5,000 households in a single suburb all upgrading to video security over the span of a couple of months.
You know mathematically that the upstream demand on that specific local node is about to skyrocket.
Exactly. And you know it before they even plug the cameras in.
You know it while the box is still on a delivery truck.
Which gives the telco a 2-week head start on the traffic spike. They can prioritize that node for a fiber upgrade before the local network degrades and people start canceling their service.
That is wild. What about other devices?
Take gaming consoles. Gaming is basically the canary in the coal mine for latency sensitivity.
Right. Gamers hate lag.
Exactly. If the agency a spike in high-end console sales, or even more importantly, VR headsets in a particular area,
Okay, VR headsets. Because in VR, if you have lag,
you literally get motion sickness. A user streaming Netflix on their TV doesn't really notice 50 milliseconds of latency. But a user in a VR environment absolutely does.
So if everyone in a specific zip code is suddenly buying the latest VR headset, the telco knows they need better fiber there right now.
Yes, but it also tells them they need edge compute.
Edge compute, meaning moving the servers physically closer to the neighborhood?
Right, to cut that physical distance and kill the latency. So the VR hardware signal lights up, and the telecom engineers say, okay, deploy an edge server facility here.
It's literally using the movement of physical consumer goods as an early demand radar for invisible digital needs.
Exactly. And then you have the high-end smartphone cycle. This is a huge theme for Mobile World Congress. Telcos spend a fortune subsidizing phones just to get people onto their expensive 5G plans, right?
Oh yeah, the free phone upgrades.
But there's no point blasting a premium 5G signal into a neighborhood where everyone is still happily using an iPhone 8. They can't even receive the signal.
Ah.
So Tembi tracks the device velocity of high-end 5G-enabled smartphones. If they see a region adopting the latest iPhone or Samsung Galaxy much faster than the national average.
That becomes a giant green light for prioritizing a 5G tower build in that specific area.
Exactly. It maps the billion-dollar capex spend directly to the capability of the devices actually on the ground. It informs their subsidy strategies and their fiber prioritization way before their internal metrics like ARPU, average revenue per user, ever even move.
I love that. And I want to make sure we touch on the B2B angle too before we run out of time, because the report mentions this idea of vertical acceleration. This isn't just about consumer gadgets.
Oh, absolutely not. And honestly, the B2B signals are arguably much more valuable on a per unit basis.
Yeah.
The data tracks massive industrial shifts.
Give me an example.
Imagine the agents pick up a sudden surge in sales for industrial IoT sensors, or logistics tracking beacons, or even automated warehouse robots being shipped to a specific industrial park.
Okay, so that's not a consumer buying a toy. That is a whole factory upgrading its nervous system.
Exactly. And what does a factory need to run a fleet of autonomous warehouse robots?
A completely bulletproof network.
They're going to need a private 5G network.
Yeah.
They need massive uptime guarantees and heavy IoT connectivity.
And usually the telco only finds out about this modernization when the factory finally issues a public RFP, a request for proposal.
And by the time an RFP is public, it's way too late. Every single telco is bidding, and it just becomes a race to the bottom on price.
But with this data, you see the vertical acceleration.
Right. You see the sensors being bought 3 months prior. So your enterprise sales leader walks into that factory and says, hey, we see you're modernizing your logistics. Let us custom build the private 5G network to support that.
You win the contract before the competitor even knows there's a project happening.
This is exactly why Microsoft is showcasing them at MWC on March 2nd. It's all about seeing demand before it fully forms.
It's incredibly aggressive. It's leveraging that data exhaust we talked about at the top of the show to completely preempt the market. But it does make me wonder...
Where's the flaw?
Yeah, isn't this all a bit fragile? I mean, we are talking about basing billion-dollar infrastructure decisions on shopping carts. What if data is just wrong? What if the agents get tricked by weird site layouts?
That is the big risk. And that's exactly why that validation step we discussed earlier is so critical.
Simulating the actual purchase?
Right. If you were just scraping search and like Google search volumes, it would be way too noisy. People search for Ferraris all day long.
But they don't buy them.
They don't buy them. But the checkout signal, the act of an agent validating that an item can be put in a cart and checking the specific shipping provider, that is a high-fidelity signal of intent.
It's skin in the game data.
It is. The checkout is the ultimate truth of intent. And for Microsoft showcasing this at Mobile World Congress, the message they're sending the industry is really clear.
That's the message.
The future of telecom isn't just about laying better hardware faster. It's about better intelligence. It's about not building the highway until you know exactly how many cars have been sold.
That really reframes this whole concept of big data that we've been stuck in.
How so?
Well, we've spent the last decade just hoarding everything, right? Every click, every scroll, every page view. But listening to this, it feels like we're finally moving into a phase where businesses are stopping and asking, okay, but what is the actual signal in all this noise?
That is the exact shift. We're moving from mere data accumulation to true signal extraction. Tembi is just one platform doing this, but it's a really potent example of the trend. It proves that the most valuable data for your specific industry might not even exist inside your industry.
That's a great point. The data that saves a telco $1 billion in stranded assets is currently sitting on a random mid-market retailer's server.
And the data that saves a retailer might be sitting in a public weather forecast or a regional financial report. The silos between these industries are completely breaking down.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this journey up, we started with a tool that basically helps a local delivery company find a new client in Denmark.
Yep.
And we followed that exact same data straight up to a strategic asset that helps massive telcos decide where to build the internet of the future.
It scales incredibly well.
So if you are listening to this right now, whether you're in enterprise tech logistics or you're just someone trying to figure out where the digital world is heading, what is the core takeaway?
For me, the core takeaway is pretty simple. In a world of absolute information overload, The winner isn't the person with the most data.
Right.
The winner is the one who can spot the behavioral signals inside the noise. Behavior beats sentiment every time. Don't ask people what they want on a survey. Watch what they actually do. Watch what they buy, because the checkout doesn't lie.
The checkout doesn't lie. I love that. And it leaves me with one final thought for everyone listening to mull over.
Okay.
If everyday retail behavior, buying a smart lock or a VR headset online, is basically the canary in the coal mine for global digital infrastructure, what other incredibly boring public data sources are out there right now?
Oh, there are plenty.
Just sitting there holding the secrets to the next massive global shift, just waiting for an AI agent to finally notice them. Yeah, look around at your own business. What kind of data exhaust are you throwing away every day that might actually be pure alpha for someone else?
That is the billion-dollar question.
Definitely something to think about the next time you're about to click place order and you hesitate for just a second. You might just be sending a signal to a satellite. Thanks for listening to the Deep Dive today, everyone.
Always a pleasure to be here.
We'll catch you on the next one.